suggest that you're doing it for another reason. That, I think, has been the real failure. Now, I don't think anyone would suggest that it was a bad idea that we put them on in the first place. I mean, the embargo grew up out of serious national security concerns, the threat of communism, Cuban Missile Crisis. There were serious national security reasons for putting on the embargo. Now, over time, that sort of flowed into, well, getting rid of the Castro regime, getting communism out of Cuba. And then, since that hasn't worked for 50 years, well, it's about human rights and improving human rights in Cuba. Hasn't really done much to do that, so it's solidarity with the Cuban people. Or there's a moral justification for sanctions that, we just shouldn't do business with awful regimes. The problem is that is wholly selected, and we do lots of business with Saudi Arabia and China and other people that do terrible things to their citizens. So, sure, I mean, there were very good reasons for putting on sanctions. I'm just not sure that there are very good reasons for keeping them.
Right, but then if you were to give, basically, if you were to, removing the embargo is going to bring more money inevitably into the country. That's the whole point. Now, given that they have more money now, doesn't that, in a sense, empower the government to put more restrictions on their own people, in the sense that now the police force would have money to do things that now they can't do just because they don't have the money to support it? Or, would that create other difficulties for the people that we're not looking at? Basically, as an indirect result of us removing the embargo.
I think it creates opportunities for ordinary Cubans to interact with American citizens and learn about our values and what the United States is all about, and it creates other opportunities for them to receive foreign currency from the United States. I mean, there's undoubtedly going to be a benefit to the Cuban government, but if you accept, in order to lift sanctions, you have to accept the fact that we're probably not going to overthrow, that sanctions are probably not going to overthrow the Cuban government. If that's the case, then I think the marginal benefit that accrues to the Cuban government is worth it to be able to help the Cuban people.
Are we sure that the Cuban people are going to get that assistance? Like I guess that's because my family's there, right? And then it's like, lifting that, is that actually going to help them, come out here, or is the Cuban government going to have enough money to be like, no, you don't have to leave, you don't have to have a new cell phone, because up to last year, cell phones and computers were illegal. You couldn't buy one.
Right. But now they're not.
Now they're not, but I feel like they're not because they ran out of money, right? So now now we buy their computers. They can't buy them, right? Because you have to go to to buy it in American dollars at twice the price that we sell it here, and then so we have to buy it for them. And then we send it there, and then they can tax it, and then the government gets money again. So it's kind of like they're loosening up the reins so that indirectly the government can sustain itself. So basically, I guess, is it a good thing or a bad thing to unconditionally lift this thing? Or I think there's some kind of a balance. There's something. It's more complicated than just let's open it up or let's not.
We're already running over. I was going to say I think we have time for one more question.
This is more about United States domestic politics, but you mentioned some opponents to loosening the embargo or resuming relations with Cuba. How fierce and formidable would you say this opposition would be if there were an executive order or debate of a bill on the House and Senate floors? And could it possibly damage Barack Obama's political capital?
It's already been fierce. I mean, Senator Menendez, he went to the floor and spoke about the evils of the appropriations that were to change Cuba policy. And my understanding is he really caused a lot of consternation within the administration by looking at the two science advisors that were Senator Obama, I think that's President Obama. This is going to go on. And, there have always been a couple of Republican members of Congress that have opposed Cuba policy changes. But right now it's Democrats that are important. It's going to be Senator Menendez and it's going to be Debbie Wasserman Schultz. who's a cardinal on the appropriations committee, and she's important herself. So it's going to be contentious, and I think for that reason, change is going to be incremental and slower. I mean, Obama may eventually do the things that I talked about, but it's going to be, he's not going to want to pick a fight. I mean, you know, one of the other things is, if you take a look at Cuba, traveled by all Americans, there's an argument out there that the president doesn't have to listen to Congress, and you know, Congress can't put restrictions on what the president wants to do, and so you could just issue an executive order and restore travel for all Americans. That may be, the president may theoretically be able to make that argument, except that would take a huge fight in Congress. And so I don't think that's in the cards. I mean, I think what he's going to do is he's going to be smaller increment, and we'll probably try to get buy-in from as many of those members as we can. And then just maybe get a vote.
All right. Do you want to answer one more?
It seems that, sort of follow up on what you have been saying. The Cuban government has always said that the embargo is the cause of all the suffering that's happening on the island. And the United States has always said that no, the embargo is not the problem, it's the Cuban government which is the cause of the suffering. And this question, which version is true, has never been put to the test because the embargo had always been there. But if the embargo is lifted, then the answer will come out one way or the other. And one group of people are, depending on what the answer comes out to be, would not like it and would be hard put to explain what has happened. It seems like from both sides there's a tremendous risk in lifting the embargo because one side will be proved wrong. And I don't know, I mean, if do you see that as a possible disincentive from both sides to lifting the embargo?
Well, I think Cuba's been a tremendous beneficiary of the embargo. The Cuban government has. They've used it to put all their problems on the United States. And this is what happens with the Commission for Assistance to a Free Cuba. It's Plan Bush is the problem. It's these crazy Americans that are trying to hold you down. I think that's not the case. And I think if you strip away the embargo, that would become fairly clear fairly quickly. Just to give you one example on business, I mean, you look at our businesses which are prevented from operating in Cuba. So, well, they would all be there if it wasn't for U.S. sanctions. But turning off sanctions is not like turning on a spigot to foreign investment. And we've seen this in other contexts. I think we would certainly see it in Cuba. Cuba's investment climate, you can't own land, and there's this political overlay that governs every foreign investment transaction that you may wish to name. The political bureaucracy investigates everything and tests it against whether or not it's right for the politics of the country, not just the economics. So I suspect, even if we stripped away the embargo, you would see very little immediate U.S. investment in Cuba because there's this whole other system there that no one has had to deal with for so long. And our businesses would probably recognize it as very difficult business.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I hope everyone enjoyed.